They say we should have known better than to fall so deep down into this rabbit hole we found. And I was thinking.
Hi, this is Nikolai, and you're listening to my dad, Rafal, co-host James Jardine, and featuring Mr. Jim Tiller on the one and only Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Plug in, listen up, and enjoy.
Deep into this pool of regrettable situations. Pitch black, think back to the last time that we were happy.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome down the Security Rabbit Hole to yet another edition of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast, going interview style today. Just myself and my interviewee here. We'll meet him in just a second if you don't know him. I want to thank you guys for continuing to listen and support the podcast. It is, as 2026 starts to rolling out a whole group of really cool guests for you and some fun topics. Might mess with the format just a little bit just to see what you guys like, what you don't like. How many of you watch on YouTube as we stream these episodes? If you subscribe, you'll always know and be able to catch these things as they are recorded live. Without all the outtakes, which we don't usually have very many, but they're fun. For example, when my cat decides to join the podcast, or some guests, or somebody has some kids running through, it's always fun to see what happens. Anyway, without further ado, let's meet my guest, somebody I have known or met.
Don't say the number. Don't say the number.
Yeah, I'm not going to say a number. Let's just say it was a while. Ron, welcome to the show, my friend.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Rafa. It's really a pleasure. I don't know that I would subject an audience of friends to my presence for 30 minutes, but I appreciate the opportunity and happy to have a conversation.
So let's start with this. I met you back when you were helping grow Checkpoint here in the U.S., when I was an eager Checkpoint, when security platform, affectionately known as Splat, was just being thought of. And then we met shortly thereafter. And then, yeah, you've gone on to a whole lot of things. Give us a brief synopsis of kind of who you are and what it is that you've been doing.
Yeah, so usually it takes a couple of drinks in me to talk about it so many years. But, funny enough, my career actually started in coin laundries. And then the connectivity of those into a central location, which brought me into doing other things. And eventually I ended up in a company called RadGuard, which was an innovative VPN company that was part of the Rad group in Israel.
Okay. Anybody associated with Radware?
It's part of the Radware. I mean, Radware is one of the Rad companies groups. They had Rad Vision at the time. They had Radware is still there. And the CEO, Roy of Radware, is the son of the two Zisapel founders, who were really icons in the Israeli technology era when it began.
That's awesome.
From Radware, I went on to Checkpoint. Again, the part of the drinks is that I explained to people that I've been to Checkpoint 5 times already over the years.
They can't get enough of you.
Yeah, the question is who can get enough of who, right? I mean, they might say it the opposite way, but I've had long terms, and I had great opportunities and huge leaps professionally and personally with at Checkpoint, with people and technologies. In between, I've done different things. I went to NICE, an Israeli company in the audio and video recording. I was one of the pioneers there of when they moved video from Cat5 from coax to Cat5, and I joined that team to be part of that. As a pre-sales engineer, then came 9/11. And I was the only team member in North America who had security clearance to do a lot of the airport projects that NICE won. I paid. And
there were a lot of those.
Yeah, it was all sad or funny, but I paid rent in Manhattan, and in a year I slept in my apartment 17 nights in a calendar year. So per night, my rent was insane.
But about on par with what it is now.
Yeah. I guess it is. I mean, then in between, I've gone to different startups. Most of them got sold to different companies. I've been at Microsoft 3 times for acquisitions. I was part of Accor Security, which was a super interesting go-to-market motion at the time. PureSec that got acquired by Palo Alto. And then a couple of recent startups that I've been with. And now I'm sort of looking for my way to what to do next. I thought I could retire and I'm realizing I can't.
That, retirement sounds like a good idea, I think, in theory for a lot of us. But I've talked to a couple of friends that are like, I can't imagine what I would do on day 5 of retirement. Like first couple of days, you go out and play a couple of rounds of golf, you go fishing, you do some stuff around the house, and you're like, okay, now what?
I can't tell you how awful are the days that you wake up in the morning and say, okay, 16 hours, what am I going to do with them?
That's right. You got to keep the brain. Hey man, you got to keep the brain occupied as especially if you're used to this kind of high speed, we're in a high tech, right? This high speed lifestyle. You slept 17 days in your house. I traveled almost 200 days out of the year for a couple of years straight. And similar to that years prior, I know that life, right? I never want to go back to it now that I've got a family, ever. But it's hard to completely become sedentary because, especially if you take away like the stuff that challenged your brain, the work stuff, you can have hobbies and you can have, leisurely activities. And those are very important to slow the brain down and give yourself a little time to relax and unwind. But after a while, you start to go loopy.
Yeah, it's this. I mean, I tried to do online training and I dove into AI and I thought I can do so many things. But I think the other part of it for me is the people, right? So I'm a people's person. And it's not just about keeping my brain. It's also keeping my mouth moving and, and subjecting people to hearing what comes out of it. It's like the question of what happens if a tree falls in the forest, if there's noise, if no one is there to hear it. From my experience, if I'm the tree, if no one is hearing it, there's no noise.
You're right. Hey, what would you say, because you had a very, very varied experience like in technology. Any kind of challenges that you find that you get to solve kind of over and over in different contexts? Like, what's your favorite thing to work on?
I think I like the learning of solving current new problems, right? I mean, I've done more transitions than any career expert would recommend to someone. But that's when I do. I always move to different technologies. I never moved between competitors because it wasn't interesting, and there was no reason for it most times. And the main reason to move would be either team members or something that keeps me super intrigued and give me the learning experience and the ability to go into something very different than what I've done before. So I didn't even go to auxiliary things. I sort of leaped from one place to another, virtualization security, firewalls, VPN, cloud, containers, functions, and and then external attack surface management, and then CNAP. And I like the fact that I learned, the broader gamut of security facets. And I think that, looking what's happening in the market today, the move to platformization is because people can't continue to do this and keep their depth of expertise and knowledge in all those pillars that make a security architecture whole. And so I actually now thinking of like, how do you simplify all of those things into something a bit more coherent and manageable from the audience perspective, which is the security practitioners who are the customers of all of this.
Okay. Have you, let's talk on the customer side, because that side interests me. I've spent quite a bit of time thinking, probably the last 6-7 years, thinking more and more about the customer journey from a vendor's perspective, but not how do I sell you more? It's how do I get you to adopt what you're actually buying? Because one of the things as a vendor, a good chunk of my career, much like yourself, is I found that customers, for better or worse, it wasn't real hard to get customers to buy security stuff. It was much harder to get them to successfully implement that. Do you find that true?
Yes, and I think I would split it into two buckets, if you will, that over the years went from different parts of that security, which is the read-only, or the passive view, and the actually read-write, or the active view, like inline or byline kind of thing, right?
Okay.
The read-only is usually easier. You connect whatever it is. It's a span port on the switch 20 years ago. It's an API now. It's a log today that you read. Those are easy to do, and then the question is, what do you do with that?
Right.
And then there's when do I actually make use of my platform, right? I mean, did I bring the platform to just tell them what's going on, or did I bring the platform because I want to get things better? And again, it goes to the IPS of 20 years ago, right? I mean, there was the IPS that was inline or read-only, and the read-only didn't do IPS. I mean, it showed you bad things after they happened, and, go figure it out. Which is the same with a lot of the cloud security stuff today. I mean, CNAPs that are looking at the logs are showing you what happened 5 minutes ago, best case scenario, or yesterday, worst case scenario. And where do you put them in and just say you block? You see something bad, block it. So the implementation of the passive view across technologies across the last 20 years has been much simpler, but had zero results in ROI when you come to a renewal or to an outcome. And it comes from two reasons. One, it's past, what you see. And second, who's going to look at the past? I mean, I'm living the moment. I mean, I only go to the past if something bad happened and, all hell breaks loose, and I need to figure out what happened yesterday. So I will go back into the log. Now you you say, okay, so you have this, you trust that it shows you the right thing, that it categorizes the same things, and it's been 30, 60, 90 days. Let's now make it work for you. That's a whole different sort of play field where most customers don't. And when they do it cautiously, and then they put the human factor into it, which slows down and makes the thing much less effective than it would have been without the human intervention or supervision that the customer expects to put in.
So you make this distinction, and I'm glad you did. It's easy. I'll never say it's easy. Nothing in security has really ever been easy. It's easier, right? There's less friction in implementing passive technologies, the IDS off of a span port, not inline. I did this with WAF when I was at General Electric. We put in the first WAF into the environment, and it was supposed to be, we'll implement it. We'll put it in read-only, in monitor for a while, and then by the time we understand what's going on, we'll put it in protect. Everything will be great. 18 months later, we're still deploying, not implemented. A year and a half later, after that, so now we're 3 years in, we're still in monitor and respond mode, but nobody has time for monitor. I think there's a transition. I want to say there's a transition happening, but it's in very, and I'm not going to say it's those two letters, it rhymes with my. Now you have to drink. There's this technology that's enabling, because we've talked about getting blocking defenses attacks in real time, getting involved in real time, stopping attacks as they happen. Most of that, if I may say, has been bullshit, because attacks don't happen super slowly in reality, right? That by the time that we're watching a command, and we go, oh, I'm going to stop that. You saw a command that was 10 minutes ago, near real time. And we've had this reactive view to proactive security. We've tried to push security further and further and further and further and further to actually being near real time and at the speed that the attacker's coming at us. Do you believe that we're finally maybe getting to a point where we're past the IDS model and we're going to get into from passive to active security?
I mean, I don't know that there's one answer that is true to all. Do I think that this is absolutely the right thing to do? Yes. And I think that a lot of people would agree to that. The reality is that that CISOs will get fired for disrupting the business because of error more than they would if there was a breach. It's not a nice
fair.
truth, but if you signed off on what broke the business down for an hour versus an attacker went through and broke the business down for an hour, I don't know which is the worst one for your career. Now, the CISO's career is anyway, is as it is. It's a very edgy profession.
Yeah.
But so how do you, where do you take the thing to say that's going to do it better than me? Now, remember, AI is a thing of the last 12, 18 months in security, still brewing and still maturing. But even before that, I didn't see a lot of move into inline activity or inline enforcement. Even with the native tools that were not necessarily AI, but they were saying, oh, there's a connection to, country C, and that's not allowed from here. Why is someone need to decide if we want to cut it off or not on the firewall?
Yeah.
I mean, country C, no outgoing connection, definitely not incoming connection, no data payloads going either way, period. If that's if you stand behind it, there's no reason for anyone to put a rule in manually or approve it when the firewall admin proposes it. And still, you'll find that 80% of the customers, even with the basic, 30-year-old technology of a firewall, still reviews firewall rule changes manually in a process that is usually weeks long. And at the same time, we said there's nothing going to CLAN, and still there's a connection for CLAN in the queue for a firewall to administrator to approve. I'm sure that there's a lot of people in the audience who say, what are you talking about? In our place, we shut it down. And I'm not saying it isn't. But if you think about the majority, I'm guessing that the majority is not doing it today. And the majority is, it may be the majority of Fortune 100 are doing it, but they are not. They are like the crop of the security profession size and capabilities, whereas the global 10,000, if 100 are doing it and 9,900 don't, then we're not doing it as in general.
Yeah, that becomes a challenge. I think, something you said, the CISO is probably more likely to get fired for disrupting legitimate business than having a security incident. But I think that goes back to this.
I'm not sure. They may be fired for both equally.
Okay, fair.
I don't envy them and their liability.
In either, right? In either way. But I think that's a business risk tolerance question that ultimately has to be answered internally. And it makes what we do difficult because you want to say, hey, look, I see something that I'm relatively sure is suspicious. I need to automate that response in the future. And then suddenly we have, the technology we work with is imperfect. That's just the way it works, right? If we go back to pattern matching is a categorical failure long term. Fine, we know that. But I think if we go back to kind of what the goal of what we do is, it's protecting the business, as Dan Gear once said, from unmitigable surprise. Right, it's keeping the business from being surprised that you can in a way that you can't do anything about. And I think security in a rational sense is going to have failures. It's going to have to deal with breaches. It's going to have to deal with incidents. Sometimes they become breaches. Sometimes they don't. But I think it's rationalizing that to ourselves that that's just really how risk works. Whether you're a police officer, a fire, in the fire crew or in cyber, that's just how it works. Sometimes things fail and you got to have a contingency plan, right?
Right. But again, I mean, there are two things that weighs into it. I've just worked with a huge multinational organization where the security function is central, but the business units have a lot of power and decision into what's being implemented in each business unit and how. And they have every business unit has its own security leader that can override stuff that comes from central. Now you think about
that feels familiar.
I mean, it's all really weird because I understand that the business pays the bills. However, what happens if the business goes down, right? I mean, look at Asahi Beer, the breach that was there a few months ago. Yes, it was a business decision to do certain things from what we're learning after the fact. But the reality is that Asahi was shut down for weeks after the attack, with things that could have been prevented easily had the business been a bit more tolerable to security and logical enforcement that they refused because they made things a bit more complicated. And there's always the tension, and this has been even before, that may be the second oldest professional conflict in the world between business and security, right? Like ability to work and execute and convenience. And it's a delicate balance because sometimes you say, well, so you're going to spend another 10 seconds on whatever, but it's going to be so much more secure. And the business says, no, I don't have 10 seconds. And really, in the long term, if you look at it, it costs you 30 days, a year later, all those 10 seconds over the 700 days won't match the 2 weeks of downtime that it costs.
Yeah. And that kind of takes us back to this idea of, you said implementation again, right? I think in the world that we live in the reality of the world that we live in, it's easy to buy and deploy. It's really difficult to implement. And having the technology that could have prevented something that was business impacting, but it was not implemented. It failed because it wasn't implemented properly or not implemented at all. I gotta think it makes it worse than not having that technology at all, because you had the fire extinguisher there. It's just that nobody knew that it was there and nobody used it to put the fire out. Well, that's your fault. And it puts the emphasis on creating technology from a vendor perspective, security technology specifically, that's simple enough, that's understandable enough, and that's, I think, the word implementable is a very nebulous term, but it's able to be implemented with enough frictionless, help, so that it doesn't take an act of Congress to actually implement something you bought. And the example I can share with this is anything that's on a network, any kind of network security mechanisms. Because even though network and security are slowly starting to converge again after, decades apart, I feel like, and your firewall background and network and security background, maybe you can agree or disagree with me on this, but I feel like the security team says, hey, we need this network security thing, firewall, IDS, WAF, NDR product, whatever it is. And they go, and the leadership goes, yep, that's a good idea. I think that should be there. And then they go look at the network team and say, hey, I need you to allocate a span port on everyone, or I need taps off of every single one of your networks. And they're like, yeah, I don't have that. That means you got you bought $10 million in security gear. Now you need $11 million in taps and spans and ag products to make that work. And network team's like, I'm not doing that. Or I don't have the money, or I don't have the staff. And suddenly now you've got I've bought it, but I can't actually implement it. And that is a frustration that I have seen in the field, and one that I've internalized, and I work a lot on trying to solve that, or at least address it. I'll ever solve it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that you're describing an interesting case where security buys a product that they don't know that they cannot deploy without dependency on other products and teams. Think about the security teams that have 3 of the same product capabilities, right? They buy you look at customers that have Microsoft E5, CrowdStrike, and I don't know, and a Palo Alto ELA that has all of their products. So right now they have multiple EDR products that they can deploy, and they pay for all of them. And while they don't count, and then someone decides to deploy one of them versus the other. I mean, how many customers do you know that had antiviruses? There were, in the last 5 years, there were so many outrages over the old antivirus companies charging a Wall Street bank for 75,000 seats because according to their agreement, if they had one license deployed, they are committed to renew. And so they went all in with the new EDR solution, forgot that they had two antiviruses on Windows XP machines somewhere, and then they are having to renew for another 3 years at millions of dollars a year.
Yeah.
And you're like, where's the planning in that? I think that, some of the security practitioners that I talk to, and I'm talking about, the Fortune 500, 1,000 companies, they don't even know all the products they have, right? At some point you need an operations manager to keep a list of what you have, the renewals, how you pay for it. If you're global, where did you buy it? I've seen companies buying the same product in two different countries with different prices from the same vendor.
All the time.
The EMEA deal was half priced in the North America deal, but somehow they all ended up buying because why not? And so a lot of this comes, and that leads to the fact that there's some numbness about the deployment, right? If no one is measuring everything you pay for in deployment and success and ROI to the organization, this is where it gets weak, even before the challenges. Like if you buy something for $1 million and you don't have a clear path to making it work for you for $2 million, you're losing money right there.
Yeah. But I think that now you're right in my side of the pool here. This is exactly what I've been working on for the last couple of 5 years. You say ROI, and my spidey sense in security, my spidey sense tingles. I immediately get that. Ooh, somebody's going to bring up some spreadsheet that's going to tell me I'm going to save $10 million by buying their $5 million product. Here we go. Right, having been on the buyer side. Like I remember that vividly, and I hated every moment of it. And then on the vendor side, I've had leadership in previous companies that would be like, okay, we need a worksheet, a way to show a customer that if they buy this, they'll save 2x this. And I'm like, that's dark arts magic stuff. Like we're summoning demons here. Like it's not a good way to go. ROI, I think is a tough way to go. I think risk reduction is probably like dollar risk, right? If we can, for those that are attuned to the financial end, and everybody should be, I think dollar risk reduction is really the place that we want to go as we mature.
Yes and no. The ROI can be measured by different organizations in different ways. And you say, if I go in monitoring mode, then I need 3 people to monitor everything that comes in and then go take the action. However, if I deploy it in a way that it does 90% of the stuff automatically, I only need 1 person, my ROI of buying this product that has the automation capabilities would be saving 2 headcounts to do better, greater things than it could. And so you look at that, and there is some sort of an ROI in terms of not just the risk reduction, because it's going to do it faster, automatically, and less expensively. It's going to free up human minds that can go do more complicated things that specific whatever platform or product is not going to address, right? I mean, there's so many things. Yeah. I don't know any security team that has people sitting on the bench waiting for something to find something to do. Like I did a holiday drink with one of my favorite Wall Street CISOs, and we sat down, and we were someone I've known for many, many years. And he said to me, all you people like from Israel, whenever now 2, 3 new founders walk into my office and say, hey, we're from 8200 and we have this great thing that addresses this problem, and it's only $5 million a year. And he says, you know what? I'm now the $5 million a year are the beginning of an avalanche of 17,000 more alerts, 7 people that need to work, all of this. The $5 million is the beginning of the iceberg that is under there. And he says, now when someone comes to me and say, I'm from 8200 and I have an amazing thing, I say, hey, take $1 million and walk out. He says, that's much cheaper than buying the $5 million platform that they're going to offer me in a minute.
But that's like what you just exposed there is this whole concept of TCO, right? Total cost of ownership, or TCI, total cost of implementation. But I think this has been perpetual, and I think this falls on both sides. I have to say, because I've been on both sides of this problem where we are buying something and not thinking about the human capital, the human cost that it takes to do something with this thing, the cost of maintaining, like I said earlier, like if you're gonna watch the network, maybe you need some taps, maybe you need to upgrade all your switching gear, maybe you need like 4 more people in your SOC, maybe you need more storage for all your alerts. Like there's other things that you got to factor into this. And as a buyer, I know we at the time we were terrible at that, and I know this because more than twice I can recall 2 projects where we bought. We said, "All right, let's go," and then we went, "Ooh, crap! Forgot about. I need a storage cabinet for this. I'm out of space. Ooh, I need to go buy a bunch of network cards, or I need to go do this, or I need 10 more servers." And you're like, "Well, the money's spent. I don't know where else to get it, and suddenly the thing that I bought is sitting idle." And I can't get the value out of it because I can't actually fully implement it, and that's frustrating. But that was, I mean, I gotta say that feels
you're just
relatively
talking about the technology stack. Now you talk about the people who need to deal with it day to day after that, right?
Right. Yep.
And then the outcome of that dealing with it will require more intervention from someone fixing this or someone doing that. So that's another team that needs to go to. It's the swing is pretty long on occasion.
Yeah.
And you're right that no one thinks about it. And there is the idea of like we're buying what everyone else is buying a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we look back and say, oh, what are we going to do with it? How many customers who had CNAP from Palo Alto on a 5-year agreement or from Checkpoint on a 3-year agreement went out and bought Orca or Wiz? I mean, and then now they have 2 CNAPs in their organization. Does it make sense? Yes or no? I'm not judging, and I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but those duplications don't create effective strategy or operational excellence by having them.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the calculation of cost has been like a topic we can probably spend an entire hour on, right? Because it's challenging in itself, in that creating this, on top of here's what we're going to actually solve, here's the cost to solve it, here's the support and operations cost. If you break those down on a per year basis, well, that takes away from that magical huge ROI you're getting, because it erodes it at very least. And I feel like a good place to like take this as we're kind of running short on time here is, how do we solve this? Like, what's next? Because we can't keep selling this way. We can't keep buying this way. We can't keep taking technology into the environment, not implementing it fully, and then complaining that the vendor didn't do their job when it's at least 50% our own fault. We can't keep these relationships because they get strained over time with a lot of finger pointing, all that. Like, what's the fit? What's the solve? Or how do we get to a better place, in your opinion?
I think it's a leadership decision in organizations to sit down, look at what they have, prioritize, optimize. 3 or 4 years ago at RSA, there was a CISO, a Wall Street CISO, who walked into his role and said, I came into the bank and we have 187 security tools. He said, for me, it's a huge liability, because if I have a tool that found something and I didn't respond to it, that's a problem.
Right. I remember that.
And he's like, my team's goal is in the next 18 months to reduce it to sub 100. And then we're going to look at all of it and create, and while we're doing this, and then we'll create a security strategy and architecture that we want to do, building blocks, and we make sure that we fill those, and anything else that doesn't fit in, we don't need. And he says, I can't protect against every potential possible scenario on the planet. That's not what I need. I need to look at the 80% rule and be super good at that, and try my best on the 20% that I'm going to be weaker on, versus trying to be 200% and be very inefficient across all of them.
That's fair. That's fair. I think that's a worthy partnership, and I think it's certainly something I'm working on, and I suspect you're probably putting some significant thinking into that as well. This is those of us that have been in the industry with some length have some gray in our hair are thinking a lot about these things, because especially if you've been on the buyer side, the implementer side for this for any length of time, it becomes challenging, right? The implementation and getting value out of something that you've bought, and thinking about the total cost and factoring all that in, and then calculating that against the risk that you're trying to take out from a financial perspective, it becomes a pretty complex equation. If you're not prepared for it, it just detonates your entire, like you turn your security program into chaos at that point.
Yeah. I think that another thing of maturity is to say, I bought something, it was a mistake, I don't want to renew, and I'm not investing in it anymore. Instead of trying to keep saying, I bought it, it's so good, I'm going to deploy it against all odds. Sometimes you start and you say, hey, this is going to be more than I can bite and swallow right now, and maybe this is not the right time for my organization. Maybe I should go smaller or different direction, versus insisting that the decision that we made, me or someone on my team, we have to stick to it after we realize that it wasn't the optimal decision for who we are.
And the sunk cost fallacy. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, we're out of time. That's been a lot of fun. I think we could probably keep talking about some of the other things industry-wise, but we kind of fell down, not to use the pun, the implementation rabbit hole a little bit. It's something it sneaks into conversations. It's something I think a lot about, and especially when I find it's got a similar target, similar experiences, sees the same things. It's a thing we've got to solve. I mean, we owe it to the industry, to our profession, and frankly, as stewards and customers and sellers of money in these organizations. Like we got to do. Everybody's got to do better, and I think we got to take a minute, and rationalize some of these things. But it's tough when it's sell, buy. Don't worry about it. Everything's good. Everything's good, but we'll see, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, sir. Well, thank you for being on the show, folks. I hope you enjoyed the content. Ron's on LinkedIn. If you want to catch him, I'll link him into the show notes. And if this is a topic you guys are interested in, let me know. We'll expand upon it a little bit. There's lots of things to talk about here. I could talk about it for hours, as you can tell. Lots of good guests. But if you are nodding along and you're in the enterprise and you're dealing with post-purchase remorse, buyer's remorse, implementation struggles, I definitely want to talk to you. Whether you don't have to disclose any company secrets or anything, but let's talk in general. There's got to be a way to find commonality and tell some of these stories and really figure out how you've overcome that, how people will get through it, and how we do better. I think that's a great path forward. Ron, thank you for being such a great guest and sharing your time and wisdom. Folks, this has been another edition of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Check us out on RSS, on YouTube. We've got a page on LinkedIn. We'll catch you guys another time, another place, on another Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Ciao, everybody. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
This is Bella. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to leave my dad a review and share this with your friends. Bye.